Ladies and gentlemen, you are about to witness some scenes from the next attraction to play this theater. This picture, truly one of the most unusual ever filmed, contains scenes which under no circumstances should be viewed by anyone with a heart condition or anyone who is easily upset. We urgently recommend that if you are such a person or the parent of a young or impressionable child now in attendance, that you and the child leave the auditorium for the next 90 seconds.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of the Video Nasty Project. Tonight, we've got a special treat in store for you. Tonight, we're watching The Burning. And in honor of The Burning, we're going to have a campfire, we're going to have a big old bonfire, we're going to roast some s'mores, we're going to have some, what's this? West Coast on Fire? Statewide burn ban? What the hell? Alright, I guess we're just going to watch the trailer.
This summer, if you're planning to go camping, don't. If you're looking forward to midnight swims, don't.
Sneak on back to the campsite. Get some matches. Build us a hot fire. Don't be long.
And if you're thinking about being with someone where no one can see you, don't. Because this summer, a legend of terror isn't just a campfire story anymore.
They say he smashed his way through the bunk room door, just a mass of flames. Burned alive, cried out, "I will return! I will have my revenge!" He lives on whatever he can catch. Right now, he's out there, watching, waiting. Who's there?
What happened one summer 5 years ago is about to happen again, and again, and again. The Burning.
And welcome back. We just got done watching The Burning, a pretty solid slasher flick from 1981 with production by the Weinsteins and effects by Tom Savini. So you want to tell us a little bit about it?
These kids, these 5 boys at a summer camp, have decided they've had enough abuse at the hands of the caretaker, Cropsy, who's this mean, drunken bastard who abuses the kids. You know, he terrorizes them.
Although, to be fair, we only have the perspective from the kids' viewpoint. And kids are mean son of a bitches, so we don't know that he's actually that mean.
Yeah, they could be totally, overreacting.
Right.
So this guy's asleep. He's sleeping it off in his cabin, which happens to be full of, gasoline cans.
And lanterns.
And all this stuff. I mean,
Blankets.
He lives on the grounds.
Yeah.
Right.
And so these kids, they bring this bag along with them. And one of these kids goes in and pulls out basically this skull.
I want to know, where the fuck did they get a rotting human skull from? Either one of them's a Tom Savini wannabe, or one of them's a creepy motherfucker.
Pretty sick shit. Well, Cropsy grabs this thing, he looks at it, he freaks out. It's got candles inside the eye sockets.
And worms crawling all over it.
He drops it on his bed, which immediately starts to catch fire. He starts, thrashing about, catching on fire, and then, of course, it gets to the gas cans.
Yeah.
And he does a swamp thing out of the cabin and down in the embankment to the river below.
Now, I am a sucker for a good fire gag. Maniac Cop 2, where the cop is just on fire and he's fucking people up and smashing people against walls, and he's or Freddy vs. Jason, where Jason's on fire and he's just going through the cornfields and slashing motherfuckers. I am a sucker for a good fire gag. I loved this. So yeah, Cropsy's all stumbling out, the place is blowing up, and the kids are like, "Arr!" And he's dropping to one knee and he's staggering. And it's like, "Arr!" And tumbles down the bank, and this long shot. It was a great stunt.
It was really good. And what was even funnier was knowing about the background of it. Tom Savini explains that he goes in and he he was supposed to light everything on fire, and then the actor, the stuntman, was supposed to brush against the walls, which would have been burning at that time, and then go out the door. But Savini goes in and he trips and he drops the torch, and the place goes up in flames all over the place, including catching the stuntman on fire.
Oh man, yeah. So flash forward to him in the city having plastic surgery done, and clearly they cannot fix this guy well enough to ever get him normal looking ever again.
And those two are the worst doctors ever. Oh my god, they're like one of them. This black dude, he's like, "Come here, you got to see this shit."
This guy's
and like
really
this
fucked
guy, new guy, first day on the job, and he's like, well, "I don't know about this." And he's like, "Come on, you got to see this." And they take him into the auction tent. He pulls it back, and the black dude who's seen it a couple of weeks already is like, "Oh!" freaking out. And when Cropsy leans over and grabs his arm, and it's this gnarly looking
Mad Max shot,
just gross as
disgusting
fuck arm.
And the white guy watching just totally flips out.
And Cropsy ends up being basically this pariah. I mean, he walks around town. Nobody wants to look at him. People freak out. He hires a prostitute to make him feel better, but he's actually ends up, having his first victim of this middle-aged woman, and she's, "Oh, okay, Mac, let's get this over with."
And she sees his face and freaks the fuck out.
And that enrages him to the point where he picks up a weapon and, does away with her. First kill. So you flash forward some time. And,
about 5 years.
Yeah, 5 years or so. And you've got this summer camp, and it's a typical camp full of teenagers and younger kids. And one of these kids...
And some adults.
Yeah, some adults. And this one kid named Alfred, he's, branded as a total pervert. He's watching one of these girls, taking a shower, and he
just wanted to scare her.
Yeah, he wanted to scare her because he has no friends. Everybody picks on him and stuff, and so he's an outcast. He gets pulled aside by the head camp counselor, the director, and and he's told you got to stop doing this. And if you got problems, you just come to me, and they're starting to bond. They're going to start bonding a little bit later.
I don't think he was the head counselor. I think
he was. Yeah,
he was one of the.
Yeah, the dude with the older dude with the mustache was the guy running the show. And so from that point, it just pretty much picks up. You've got the jock, the nerd, the camp clown, pretty much all the slasher movie tropes.
Mm-hmm. And everybody clashes, and most of them are on one side of the bullying or the other. Most of these kids, there's what's the guy's name, the jock?
Oh yeah, Glazer.
Glazer. Yeah, Glazer is the jock, and he appears on the surface to be just a typical bully, but I'm guessing that he's just because of his situation. He's having some serious personality doubt issues. Maybe his proficiency in bed isn't what he wants it to be, and he kind of takes it out on, Alfred.
The interesting thing about the characters is that they all have a little bit of depth to them. Glazer he very obviously has some sort of self-esteem issues and is picking on Alfred because of it. So he's a jock, yes. He's a bully, yes. But he's not necessarily completely one-dimensional. He's like 1.5 dimensions.
Yeah.
And so they go on the overnight canoe trip because summer camp. And so you get your 8 or 10 or so kids and a couple of counselors, and they're going down the river. And, well, then Cropsy just starts picking them off one by one.
Yeah, it turns into the 10 little, campers. And there's about 7 or 8 canoes full of kids, and they're having, usual fun, splashing each other. Everything is all, cheerful and adventurous, and, they're out in the middle of the river, and they finally pull up. The kids start settling down, and one pair of kids, they decide to go into the river and make out. But this typical hormonal boy starts overpowering his girlfriend, being Mr. Hormone, and she isn't having any of it. They argue. She starts swimming back to shore, but notices her clothing's gone.
Right.
Which is a trail of breadcrumbs to lead her to where Cropsy's waiting.
And so you get your first, camp kill, basically, quote unquote.
And the kills don't really, they're all backloaded. You get about 45 minutes of just kids being kids and doing camp things. And when you're watching a Friday the 13th movie and you get the middle bit of, okay, we're just setting up all the characters, you're like, oh, can we just hurry up and get to the fucking kills already, please? the thing is here, the characters are all likable. They're all got depth and character and dimension to them. They're all a whole bunch of people that you really, really like. So when the kills start happening, you're like, oh man, they killed them.
Yeah, and Friday the 13th exists as an excuse for these counselors to be isolated and just be victims. Whereas in this film, there's personality conflicts. There's a microcosm going on here that doesn't exist in Friday the 13th. It's a much larger world than Friday the 13th. Mm-hmm. Most of the action is centered around the camp, even though the first kill, like in this movie, occurs on the way there. But mostly it's around some cabins, you know, and the woods, whereas this goes on the river. It's a big rollicking adventure, you know, you got the music and the fun, all that stuff.
One interesting thing is although the camp is the central focus of this story, not a single one of the kills take place there. There's a couple red herrings, a couple jump scares in the beginning, but you know, obviously nothing comes of them.
Spring-loaded pigeon and all that sort of thing.
You mentioned the music. I absolutely loved the music to this thing.
Yeah.
It was done by the keyboardist from Yes, not Alan Rickman, Rick Wakeman. Rick Wakeman, I think, was the guy. And I mean, it's just this weird, synth, surreal, not at all what you're expecting for this sort of music. It's really, really adds a layer to the movie.
Oh yeah.
One bit where I particularly liked the movie or the music was where Alfred was running through the trees and hiding out in various patches of rocks, and the music there, where Cropsey is stalking him, is really well done in terms of the emotional build up to it.
Now, one of the things that interested me about this film is generally in slasher films, you have to separate the kids from the authority figures. And oftentimes they just get it.
Right.
It was in this film, they don't get it necessarily. I mean, they are active. They're actively, you know,
They take a hand in it. They build the raft. They offer support. They are very proactive.
They get the remaining kids back to safety.
Yeah.
You know, while Cropsey is being isolated by being led in one direction by Alfred, and you've got the that one counselor Todd following Cropsey, and you get the feeling that this isn't your typical slasher film. That this has a lot more depth to it in terms of characterization and the payoff.
Well, one scene that was particularly well done regarding the connection or divide between counselors and kids was when the female counselor, Michelle, is on the raft getting the survivors back to the camp. She's really cheering them on. She's, they're like, oh, I'm tired, I can't do anymore. And she's like, come on, we got to keep going. And she really is doing a good supportive job. Getting them back into paddling, and she's good at what she does. In Friday the 13th, one of the weaknesses is that some of the camp counselors you don't believe could be actual camp counselors because they're shit.
You mentioned that the movie has a lot of depth to it, and the one real huge strength about the movie that I really enjoyed was that it used its location really, really well.
Oh, brilliantly!
It's got these ruins that you're kind of playing this kind of hide and seek cat and mouse thing. It's got the old abandoned mine at the end, but it's all dark with these shafts of light coming through the dust. The lake or the river is beautiful. I mean, they use the landscape gorgeously. The camp's pretty cool. It looks like $1 million.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely took their time with this, exploiting every little corner of this place that they could. I mean, they got all the production value out of this. They wrung it out in every single frame.
It's funny that you mentioned that they took their time, because that's the one thing Tom Savini did not have. And that's one of the weaknesses of the movie, is that Cropsey, the makeup, the face prosthetic, took 3 days to do. That's all the time Tom Savini had. It doesn't look the best. It looks okay, it gets the job done, but it looks significantly more The Amazing Melting Man and a lot less Freddy Krueger.
But that said, it looks bloody disgusting.
Oh, it looks great.
I mean, maybe therein lies the advantage. Therein lies the advantage of not having time, that he cranked out this mask that looks disgusting and kind of cheap and cheesy and sleazy, and that's exactly what you need for this kind of character. This is a kind of film that I could see watching in a small theater, with just one of those little sleazy 42nd Street theaters, or watching it at home and have the same effect. It's like you're hunched over this little TV with the VCR, in there, and it's all grainy, like, watching this thing.
His name's come up a couple of times so far, so let's go into the effects. Because Savini gave up Friday 2 to be in this movie.
Yeah, that's right.
The effects are fucking awesome.
Yeah.
They are top notch.
They're bloody disgusting. Just what the doctor ordered.
There's a couple of ones where if you go and watch the documentary and you go back and watch the effects, like, oh, okay, that's why he did it. Obviously, it's just the nylon zip line through the head, or it's the guy sticking his neck through the crates, and there's a fake body in front of him. You can tell after you know how it's done, but beforehand, the raft slaughter, the everything about
the guy losing his fingers,
the guy losing fingers, the guy impaled through the neck on the tree, all looks fucking gorgeous.
Oh yeah,
and even when you know it's how it's done, it still looks good. Like with the displaced body effect, where you're stabbing the dummy, but the guy's live head is right here, looking through the crates. It still looked really believable.
Yeah,
and
that was an evolution of Martin. I mean, Savini did the exact same thing with Martin, with a guy getting a stick, Martin sticking a twig through this guy's neck to kill him. He did the exact same way, and it's effective both times because their perspective is off.
Right, and it's basically all he did was the Steve Martin arrow through the head thing, just here, and it goes around and comes out the other side.
And the other thing that's jarring about this is these are kids getting slaughtered, not adults. I mean, you never expect younger kids, in their early teens, some of them maybe in the mid-teens to get it, but this is one of those cases where they're slaughtering, kids that would be the same age as some of the kids sitting in the seats. And so there's that instant identification. I mean, I was younger than most of the kids in this movie when it came out. I would have identified with the younger ones who probably didn't get to go on the raft trip. And if I'd seen this, I would, run my ass off.
Well, also one thing I should point out is that the only adult that Cropsey killed was the prostitute in the beginning. All these other victims he has are teenagers. He doesn't go after any of the counselors. He probably would have if he had the opportunity, but he didn't.
And the gorgeous thing about the effects, they're all convincing, and they're bloody as fuck. Oh my God. I mean, just squirting jugular. Cropsey, when he gets nailed at the end with the axe, just says, I mean,
gouts of blood.
Absolutely.
When he kills the prostitute, there's a nice blood splatter on the
and
mirror.
it just keeps going and going
blood
and going. It's like the Energizer, bunny. I mean, it just, oh my God.
With a bucket of blood.
And they cut away, but then they cut back, and it's more blood. Then they cut away, and more blood again,
If there's a weakness to this, I don't think I would have backloaded this kills towards the end. I think I might have sprinkled one or two kind of throughout just because, it would have been nice to get some gore along the way. I didn't mind. The characters were fine, but, a little bit of give me what I came for.
One other thing that I noticed that's interesting is this has one of the longest killer reveals of any slasher movie.
Yeah, you don't really see Cropsey until the end.
Yeah.
I mean, he does put his face up to a window,
But it's so
early
very
on.
brief.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They don't linger on it.
So you mentioned the end of the movie, and you don't see Cropsey until the very end. That's kind of about where the movie kind of runs out of steam. It's a really good movie all the way up to the end, and then it doesn't quite stick the landing. It's a little bit too long. It's a little bit too disjointed. There's that bit where you see one of the girls who was killed earlier, who was basically just took a still from earlier, kind of did the halo black silhouette around her, and it's in his cabin. No, it's not. It's just obviously from a few minutes earlier.
Yeah, so a lot of movies from that period tended to have, the chase just goes on, and like Torchy, she gets in a helicopter and chases down, this drug lord dealer guy, and it goes on for a minute too long. Sometimes they just had a problem trimming.
They could have trimmed it down some.
Yeah, they could have trimmed it down or done a few alternative things. Well, however, it does. Although it kind of goes down, it also peaks up at the very end with the retelling of the Cropsey story around another campfire with a whole different squad of kids.
It's a cyclical thing.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe Cropsey, in fact, his body was never discovered. We don't know.
Yeah, they left him burning with an axe in his head.
Yeah.
He's probably dead.
Probably.
Oh, and his pruning shears in his back.
Yeah, that's true.
And then the cops were just outside. So,
Yeah.
you know, it probably was that's it for Cropsey, which is why it was a one and done movie. And I think that's one of its movie strengths is they didn't drag it out to, okay, Jason's now in Manhattan, yay. What was your favorite kill?
Oh, my favorite. Oh God.
Right.
Right? Because so many
Right.
so
There's
many
so
good,
many
juicy
good ones to choose from.
I mean, if I had to choose the most disgusting one, I'd say it was probably Fisher Stevens getting his fingers cut off.
All right, no, that's pretty solid. That's very solid. I mean, you get the and then the reaction shot, lots of blood, very strong.
That
choice.
one is usually
And
the,
then the kill shot.
That's usually the one you get still of in
Mm-hmm.
FX or Gore magazines from this movie. The hand, the bloody, stumpy
Right, right.
fingers.
All right, your
I'm gonna
favorite.
have to go for Glazer. Glazer with the pruning shears up against.
Oh yeah, and that vertigo shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a very strong choice
Yeah.
too. All right, I'm going to go with the very first kill, the
Prostitute.
prostitute getting killed, because it's all of a sudden you're watching the setup for a slasher movie, and all of a sudden it veers, takes a left turn, and goes into giallo territory. You've got the gloved, masked, silhouetted killer. He's got a hat. You see him in silhouette. It's all very. I mean, when the prostitute gets killed, you see the splash of blood behind her. It's very, very giallo. So. Very stylish.
And there's a sense of claustrophobia because you're in this apartment, and you're upstairs. There's no way out other than the window, and she's clearly in her element, because she's an urban prostitute, but she's suddenly locked away in this insane asylum with this killer. Looks at this face, and it's like, what the hell did I just wander into?
Oh shit! I'm gonna go, baby.
Yeah.
No charge. Just go. So I think I know why the ending was a little bit wonky, because the Weinsteins wanted one thing, the director wanted another, and they were just running out of time. So they were kind of pushing and pulling. So I think that's why it kind of ran out of steam. It didn't quite land.
Well, also, I got the impression that Tom Savini was also another one of the power players in the making of this.
Yeah, they
So
kind of brought him in for
yeah.
the last minute. Kind of do some, B-roll directing.
Mm-hmm.
So
because he was turning into a superstar there,
Yeah.
for his work with George Romero.
Yeah.
So yeah, it wasn't. The ending wasn't quite as perfect as it could have been because the behind the scenes ending wasn't quite as harmonious as we'd like it to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd agree with you there. I mean, the weakest part of the movie, in my opinion, is the climax.
Yeah, and just a little bit of editing would have tightened it up and made it strong.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
So we'll give it a 98% awesome, and that last 5% was like, well, what you gonna do?
Yeah. Now, if I were to give this a letter grade, I'd give it an A- or maybe a B+. It's a good, solid film.
Yeah.
Throughout most of it.
Not a weak performance in there. It's all really just well done, well paced, and up till the end, and just boom. I mean, they're on it.
Yeah,
They're on point.
And it was one of the early slashers of the '80s. I mean, it was. I think Sleepaway Camp was like '82, wasn't it?
Something like that.
And
Something
yeah,
around
and so
that.
like really, you had Friday 1, and that was it. Friday 2 was in production when this was coming out. So this was really the prototype, the genesis of the slasher.
And you
genre.
could tell everybody was just jumping in there to get theirs done. I mean, they were saying there's a grab bag. We need this. We need kids. We need the kill here. We need blah blah blah. We need the bully. And you can see where they just start piling on the detail. It's like a supreme pizza. It's got all the stuff. You bake it. You bring it out. You got pie.
Yep.
Ooh, it tastes so good going down.
Yep, there you go. There's our there's your blurb for the back of the DVD cover. Tastes good going down.
Yeah. Right on.
All right.
So, does The Burning belong on the nasty list?
I'm going with no. I'm going with this. Although the story is stronger and the kills are better, this is the type of slasher film you expect. This gives you all the good, and it doesn't overdo it. I mean, sure, it doesn't cut away real quick like Friday the 13th does, but it does the kills in a way that's not, so sickening that you can't watch it, and have nightmares for weeks about this.
Right.
The intent is to scare and to thrill, not to disgust and, make you wish you'd never been born.
Right.
This is not Faces of Death.
Some of the kills are pretty graphic and bloody, but they're not too gross. They're not too horrific. Some of them you kind of expect that, there's going to be blood flying around, and well, it delivers on that. But the kills themselves weren't much of a surprise to me. So, no.
When the movie was released by the BBFC, they only demanded 9 seconds of cuts from the movie. Probably right around the raft scene, probably that's going to be the core of what they want to cut.
Yeah. Big
If your movie can be released with only 9 seconds of cuts, then it has no business being on the nasty list. What baffles me is that Friday 1 and Friday 2 did not make the list. They got regulated to the Section 3 list, which could be confiscated but not prosecuted. This one landed on the list, so that just only illustrates how batshit crazy this whole process was. If Friday didn't make it, and this is not nearly, it probably is equal as Friday, probably is gory, probably is intense. If this one made it, then why didn't Friday? If Friday didn't make it, then why is this on the list? So no, not on the list. So since we're pretty much unanimously agreeing that the movie was really, really good, let's play with it a little bit. Friday 1 or The Burning?
Friday.
Pick one. Friday?
I like Friday because I was exposed to it first. Sometimes the first is your favorite, the classic. I like the setup a bit more. Also, I was at the age when those kinds of things affected me a lot more. I didn't see The Burning till I was well past my 20s, or into my 20s, so it was more like seeing more of the same, of a classic genre. But when Friday came out, I knew more about it, and I saw pictures and stuff like that, and that made me want to see it. And when I finally did, I was like, oh yeah. So yeah, Friday.
I also would have to go with Friday the 13th. Partly because, like him, I saw it first. I saw virtually all of the movies before I saw The Burning. And it's kind of like it's not so much comparing apples to oranges as it's like comparing two different kinds of apples.
I'm going to go with The Burning over Friday because it's got a stronger story. It's got much more likable characters.
That's a good point.
The setting's really strong. I love the music. So all in all, it's a much better package than the Friday.
We ask your cooperation in helping keep our theaters clean. Please deposit all containers and litter in trash receptacles located in the theater. Thank you.
And there we go. That was The Burning. Be sure to check back in next week when we start venturing into the seas. Ooh, we're heading into cannibal territory. Watch out. In the meantime, if you would, please drop us a note. We'd love to hear from you. Our email is thevideonastyproject@gmail.com. And we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.